Hi, my name's Tim Landgrave, and I'm the Regional Director for the State of Kentucky here at Tech Ed, working on some Grok talks. Thought you guys might be interested in figuring out how to build contract-first web services using the ASMX. So when would you want to build a web service using the contract first? This is fairly common when companies have developed a schema for which we need to write programs that can manipulate it. So we have to write applications that consume these schemas, and there's a couple of ways to do this. One way to do it is to hand author the 𝑊STL definition and then use the 𝑊STL compiler to create the definition for us. The problem is that for most developers, 𝑊STL is like speaking Chinese. So there's actually an easier way to do this, and that is by creating ASMX classes and then iterating through the resulting web service to create the 𝑊STL that we want to create. So to show you how this works, what we'll do is go through, use an existing schema for a purchase order, and then build a web service that can accept purchase orders from that schema or return a list of purchase orders using the same schema definition. So here you see the schema stored in a file called PO.XSD, and what you'll notice is that we have two elements, a PO and a list of PO, and then a couple of complex types, a complex type of PO, a complex type for the internal orders, and then another complex type that returns that list of POs. What we need to be able to accomplish is to convert this XSD into a set of classes that we can use as part of our application. There's actually a utility that ships with Visual Studio that allows me to convert this called XSD. So first we'll change to the directory that has this XSD file saved, and by just typing in XSD with the classes switch and giving it the name of the XSD we want to convert, this will actually generate a class definition for this XSD file. And you'll notice that it's named PO.XS. So I'm going to go back now and add this to my solution. And what you'll notice once I've added it is, I now have a class that's been generated for me that's able to use the XML serializer to create an outbound PO. So now we need to go and write the code that allows us to consume and to emit this XML, and we will do that by creating a web service. So I'll add a new web service, and we'll call it PO System. And once we have the web service, we'll need a couple of methods that allow us to submit the PO or to generate a list of POs. So using our handy autocoder, we'll grab those web methods and bring them in. And what you notice is that I have two methods, one called submit, which allows me to accept a PO in that XSD format that was given to me, and another one which, when queried, returns a list of all the POs waiting to be processed. So I'm maintaining an internal cache of these POs as they're submitted. You'll also notice that I have a helper class here called PO Cache that's simply taking the orders as they come in and putting them into an internal array list and then returning them when called by getPendingPO. You also recognized when we looked at this original XSD file that it had a given namespace, in this case 𝘍𝙬𝙤𝑐.com/purchasing, and we need our resulting files to also have that same namespace. So I will go in on the web service itself and add a web service attribute which supplies the namespace. So let's go through and see how close we are to the original design by going in and previewing what the 𝑊STL that gets generated. So now by going and looking at the service description, I notice that the namespace has been changed and is now correct. But as I look down through the definition, what I notice is that even though I have my order and customer information properly, I have some extra elements in here, like the submit element, which were not part of my original definition. So what I need to do is instruct the SOAP formatter to remove those additional elements. I can do that by using the the system.web services protocols, which allows me to control the actual serial formatting taking place by the SOAP formatter. So what I'll do is for each web method, I'll instruct the formatter to use a bare parameter style, which removes everything except for the actual XSD that I want to have generated. And I can add that to all my web methods. And having done that then, when I look back at my web service again and look at the WSDL that gets generated, you'll notice now that I simply have the order types and the list of PO type that I need. But if you inspect this further, you'll notice that I'm not actually getting the naming that I want. For instance, here on the PO, it's being called order. On the list of PO, it's actually being called get pending result. So what I need to happen here is I need for those names to match up for the XSD. In order to do that, I need to change the way that the XML is being serialized. So I'll first add a reference to system.xml.serialization. Serialization, if I choose the right one. And then I can go into the individual elements and tell it what name I'd like to use during the serialization process. In this case, I have a return for the SOAP document, and I want to specify the return type. In this case, I want to call it list of PO. Now, having made those changes, if I go back, actually, if I use the right bracket type first, I can go back and look at the result. And again, when I go back to my service description, what you'll notice is they're now properly named. What I've demonstrated here, that if you're given an existing definition, you can go through, configure the namespace, add attributes that the SOAP formatter can consume, and then you use XML element descriptions for the XML serializer. And without having to learn WSDL and write the raw WSDL script, you can generate the same WSDL and use contract first web services. Thanks for your time. Have a great show.